All right, what's up? Today I'm joined by my friend fucking Kevin. He's a friend from back home in Hawaii. Known him for a good while, and he's currently a senior at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, and he is a pre-med student. Today we're just going to discuss pretty much anything and everything. Um, but first, I kind of just wanted to talk about what was it like for you transitioning like from where we grew up, Punahou School, interesting place in Honolulu, Hawaii, going to a completely different place like Omaha.
Well, Chief, it's a pleasure to be on your pretty mild podcast, but
Yeah, you already know. You already
yeah,
know.
pleasure being here. Yeah, I mean, going from high school to college was, as for like many other people, is a interesting transition. I think for me, I was able to acclimate to Omaha pretty well. I think a really interesting thing is like the Midwest is pretty chill vibes for the most part.
Yeah.
It's not as very cutthroat and toxic as I would say for like West Coast, East Coast, certain areas.
Yeah.
So it was easy to like kind of get along with the community because in my freshman year, I had my own roommate, but then we also had like suite mates, so we all like shared a
hmm
bathroom and that kind of stuff. And I mean, they're from like Minnesota, Wisconsin, that area. It's like
Yeah.
three tall white dudes,
hmm
6 feet plus. But like I mean, we all had similar interests in like sports. We were all like pre med or some pre health profession, something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that actually. Is that why you guys got room together, or was that
Um,
just a coincidence?
it was just kind of a random coincidence because
Mm.
when I was like trying to choose my roommates, it was just like just random because I think a lot of universities, I don't know if this is just like my school specifically, but they'll have like some housing portal thing online where you can like write a short biography or something
I got you.
and some shit like that.
That makes sense.
And it's really funny because like I was pretty like straight up, just to kind of like to throw people off, and I'm just like saying, yeah, I'm like this 5'7" Asian kid who likes to play
Yeah.
sports and who likes to study hard and also likes to watch go animes like Attack on Titan.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I was like, I'm not that anime kind of guy that's like into that hentai shit or whatever. I'm just
I got you.
But it was just kind of funny to kind of throw that on there. But definitely, I feel like would throw people off. But like, I didn't
hmm
really care. And I mean, I still got paired with like some dope friends. I'm still friends with all of them to this day.
Yeah.
Freshman year, super cool.
Solid. Solid.
But kind of rambling on and like to answer your question, at least for me, I was kind of able to transition nicely because I think I was reaching that point where you kind of get comfortable with high school and you start kind of just staying around with your whole cliques in that. But then kind of getting thrown into the college scene just kind of exposed me in like a good way where it forced me to be more vulnerable and like try different things, meet different people.
hmm
But at the same time, and like in an environment where it felt like safe and not like super foreign.
hmm
I mean, in addition to a lot of people like friends from the mainland and whatnot, there was like a decent number of like kids from back home that I still had a community with, and so it's
Right.
that good blend of like back home, but also like new people.
hmm
But I will say that there are some people because like our school, like Chapman and some other schools, kind of have like a reputation
Right.
like Hawaii,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm just gonna throw this out there, and if anyone sees this, like at least our Hawaii club, they're kind of like a bunch of like they're kind of like a cult,
Yeah.
and it's like I would kind of call it equivalent to like a high school clique in a way where
Mm.
I'm I'm just gonna talk shit because I don't really care, but
Go for it. Go
Kind
for
of
it.
like a little frustrating because you think that like you want to be passionate about like clubs and whatnot, blah blah blah, but at
Right.
the same time, there I know like some people that like they only hang out with like those club members and whatnot,
Hmm.
and it's just like I mean, kudos to them, so like because they're gonna be like bros and homies, sisters, whatever. At the
Yeah.
same time, it's like some of them don't really branch out, and I feel like
Hmm.
at least for me, it's like I feel like college is all about kind of meeting new people and taking advantage of different experiences if you can. And if you're just gonna
I agree with that.
and if you're just gonna
Yeah.
restrict yourself to like staying with people that are like from home or staying with people that have like similar perspectives and similar mindsets, I think you just really do yourself a disfavor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I respect people who live like that. I personally don't live like that. But I mean, if it works for other people, then it works for them, and that's really their own business. But yeah, the way I see it is, I think especially Hawaii being like an island state, and I guess with the environment that Punahou is and was, the vast majority of Punahou alumni go off to the mainland. I mean, there are a few people who stay on island, maybe they go to UH or another school, but I think it's unique in that sense because like you going to Omaha is personally I think it's a lot different than say someone from like New York going to Omaha or someone from Oregon or Minnesota in that I mean obviously Hawaii is still a part of the US but it's just so far away and I think culturally it's so different that you can't get like that same connection. It's like harder to get that same connection. That's how I feel
I
honestly.
mean, what I'll say is like if you're just a boy kid going to anywhere in the mainland, it's gonna be a culture shock regardless.
For sure,
Like
for sure.
I just for me like even though I did like felt I felt comfortable acclimating and transitioning to like the college environment. There's still a lot of like things that a lot of people take for granted that are like, what the frick? We don't have this at home, or like, dude,
What types of stuff are you referring to?
like Chick-fil-A.
Oh, okay, I got you. No, no, I agree. I
It's
agree.
like general like restaurants, stores,
Yeah,
um, like
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe sports,
Yeah,
just other stuff that are like kind of like a staple that like back home it's like obviously there's so many unique things back home, but it's like different for us going there.
right,
And it's the same
right.
so where like all my friends they'll have their kind of like stereotypes and other stuff, and I don't blame them because like most of them haven't been to the islands
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
or at least like a lot of knowledge or exposure to it.
Yeah.
But
So
that's like
when,
the interesting thing though. It's just like when you get to meet different people and get to like share your own stories and share your own perspectives and
yeah, no, I agree. I think it's important to be well-rounded in that sense.
exactly
And I mean, just be friends with whoever is friendly and whoever you like. But I guess ideally it would be a diverse group of people. And when I say diverse, that could be like geographic origin, it could be race, gender, political affiliations, all that.
right.
Yeah. So when did you know like for sure that you wanted to pursue medicine?
Just wanted to say a tangential point before I answer that question. The the Goat podcast, BSC Peyton Summer made these brownies and decided to waste money and send it to me just so I could. Sorry,
It's facts.
yeah,
Facts.
yeah. But that's the real thing. Is like you want to be friends with people who are real as fuck, man, and they'll do stuff that they'll help you out whenever like you least expect it or whatever. And you just always want to find real ones. And like, at least for me in college, just and high school, obviously too. There's like you begin to differentiate the real ones from the casuals. And I feel like you're gonna
Hey,
get that gets so important when you get older, when obviously you have less time to be in like as many social groups and as many whatever.
Right. I think the stakes change. I mean, because when you're young, when you're in your adolescence, like bad day is like trivial in the grand scheme of things. You don't really have the awareness or the perspective to recognize that back then. But then, I mean, I guess the unfortunate reality is that as you get older, like a bad day, a bad day can get a lot more like crippling,
Yeah,
whether it be mentally, physically, whatever. Yeah.
but I mean, sorry, I just wanted to make that random comment. But
No, you good.
in,
That I appreciate
in
that.
terms of
That's valuable.
medicine, I think I became interested like towards the middle, early part of high school, but I still didn't really know like maybe I want to do this or maybe not.
Hmm.
And I think my interest really started when I started volunteering at this like pediatric orthopedic hospital. So pediatric kids, orthopedic,
Hmm.
musculoskeletal, bones, all that whatnot. And I mean, I don't know about you, but like I've broken a bone, and there's a lot of other kids that probably done the same as well.
Hmm.
And while like that stuff isn't as like major, at least at the hospital I volunteered at, like some of the injuries and conditions really range from like acute to like devastating. Just
I see.
because
Interesting.
then some
What?
permanently have to wear like a brace, or you're kind of restricted to the wheelchair. Like,
Mm,
because the thing with orthopedics too is like within orthopedics, there's a lot of like subspecialties as well, where you'll have that one guy that like deals with all like the scoliosis patients, so it's
hmm.
fine. Or then you can also have a lot of other patients, not a lot of, a lot of other providers or physicians that kind of focus on maybe like the shoulder, arm, or like the hip, the knee, the feet. You know what I mean? Like each
Yeah.
limb is kind of the whole medical field is kind of transitioned to, you have to like specialize if you kind of want to survive in a way. And then I can go into more detail about that kind of stuff, but basically,
Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think it's going into more emphasis on specialization?
the thing is because your typical like primary care doctor, so whether like it's just like a normal pediatrician or like a family medicine, or just like your normal adult physician,
Hmm.
they're kind of just responsible for like a lot of like the, oh, do your physical exams, do your basic review of systems, see how you're doing, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But then it's like if there's something like more specific or troublesome with you or whatnot, usually they won't be able to answer those questions, because
I see.
a lot of these subspecialties require like additional years of training, where in terms of like the primary practice, so let's say the trajectory is you finish high school, do your undergrad, and then you do
Hmm.
medical school.
Right.
But then after medical school, which is like 4 years,
Right.
you can go into like a variety of different residency programs. And
Hmm.
residency programs are essentially kind of like that last hurdle before you can become an attending physician, whereas like you're a physician like on your own without people like supervising, or
Hmm.
um, kind of like calling the shots and stuff and making sure you're like not doing a lot of bad shit
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But those residency programs can range from like 3 to like 6, 7 years. And
Mm.
like
Damn.
the the former, which like less years, like 3-ish, tends to kind of fall under like the pediatrics, primary care, and those kind of things.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong against that, but it's just basically like you're not going to get as much training going to that versus like a normal pediatrician versus, let's say, a pediatric, uh, throw in any specialty. I already gave out orthopedics, but you can do like neurology, gastroenterology, which is GI, or a lot of other things too. And those ones usually you'll do kind of like the pediatric training, but then also like more of the subspecialty training in that specific organ system or
Gotcha.
field. And I mean, this is a very like shallow answer, but I think the main reason a lot of people do go into those specialties because you need to make that bread, you know.
Hey, if you're just speaking facts, right? Like, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh, for real.
Not gonna like blame anyone or shame anyone for it, because obviously people choose their career path for different
Yeah.
reasons. Yeah,
And then,
I mean that's how I
but
feel.
what I'll say is like I think a lot of people come to the realization is if you invest so much time and voluntarily go into student loan debt, you want to have that kind of be a rewarding where, you know,
Right.
I did all this training and whatnot to get to where I wanted to be. And for a lot of people, it's like getting to that like specialized field or whatever.
Hmm.
It's kind of like when you're going through college and whatnot, and you have to take like the intro level courses or like the basic level course, but like everyone hates it, right?
Yeah.
But then eventually, like you get to progress further into your major or further into like whatever you're studying, and actually like get to experience and do a lot of stuff that you like intended or wanted to do, and that's kind of like that equivalent to like the whole training process where, well, I can finally go into the residency program that I want to, and then learn more and subspecialize in that kind of stuff. Blah blah blah.
I got you.
But then
So
again, I just want to like reiterate that like this is not a shot at all your like
no,
your
no, yeah.
typical
I mean,
adult primary care doctors and whatnot because they're still really important. Because in
hmm.
fact, I know nationwide in general, there's just like healthcare worker physician shortages. Or
Right.
like back home on the Rock, it's pretty bad.
Is that so? I did not know that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad in like I think in general it's pretty bad, except maybe like the Honolulu area because that's just like the
Hmm.
metropolitan areas.
Right.
There's gonna be enough doctors for the most part,
Right.
but then again, it's like they're not gonna have the same manpower and facilities as a UCLA hospital or
Right. Right.
East Coast, something like that, you know. And
Right.
again, like if you're comparing Honolulu to some small town
Rinky dink. Yeah.
city in Kauai or one of those other neighbor islands, there's gonna be like less options, and
Hmm.
most of those um, patients from those islands where they have like some really like gnarly disease or condition, they're not gonna have access to that care on their specific island, so they often have to like fly over, basically.
Mm. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean that makes sense.
Yeah, but a
Yeah.
lot of and then like another reason why there is a shortage too, like back home, is mainly due to just like the living conditions and general um, difficulties with trying to afford staying on the Rock. Because,
Mm. Yeah.
you know, how much is a gallon of milk in
Right.
Florida?
I think everyone in Hawaii is familiar with the rising cost of living, unfortunately. But yeah, that's just what the deal is, unfortunately. I don't really know what the solution is, but that is
You know
reality.
what the solution
Um,
is?
what's up?
3 words. Let's go, Brandon.
He said it. He said it. I'm not
No, no,
I'm not saying I disagree. I'm
no,
not saying I
no.
disagree.
I mean, I'm just making a joke here, but it's like back home, it's already been like a trend towards increasing costs and increasing everything basically.
Yeah.
There's housing or groceries, gas, whatever,
Yeah.
food. But even in other areas like the Midwest, like right here, so I currently work at the hospital while I'm also in school, and basically is like it's really interesting getting to like interact with a lot of physicians at this hospital I work with, and my physician, he makes a joke to me and saying like, or like he tells me like, hey, Kevin, I'm I'm really sorry that I'm putting you through a lot today and that I have many more patients than a lot of other physicians. But he's saying, I gotta beat that motherfucking 7% inflation. Check those news, man. And the only way I'm gonna do that is adding more patients to the freaking list.
That's funny. That's funny.
But it's like
Yeah, I
even
mean,
in areas like over here where like in general there's like lower cost of living because
hmm
a $200,000 home would probably be equivalent to a $1 million home in Hawaii
hmm
if we're gonna make
hmm
that kind of
yeah,
general comparison. But even then, it's still like everything's getting expensive.
yeah. No, I agree entirely. And I mean, we've talked about it before. I think it's scary just because, like, I mean, if we think about our perspective, you and I, like, and I assume, I mean, I know for my case because I know who I interact with, but I assume for you too. Generally, I guess the people I associate with, the people I interact with on a day-to-day basis, come from similar privileged backgrounds. So, whether it be middle class, upper middle class, and I mean, even we're complaining about it, like complaining, observing the state of things. Um, so, I mean, I can only imagine what it's like for working class people, unfortunately. But it's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of the discussion we've had so far, and I feel like if anyone does actually watch this dry ass podcast, then they're probably gonna think like, "Oh, this guy, he's just so like fixated on money," and like I use that.
No, I don't think so.
No, no, no. I just want to sound smart, so I'm gonna use this word. Very pecuniary oriented. Yeah,
Okay.
that's one that you're not gonna fucking put on Wordle because that's more than 5 letters. But basically, it's just like another way of saying kind of like financially oriented, kind of fixated on
Yeah.
that. But I think the important thing that a lot of people realize that money can't buy you happiness, but what it can buy you is time.
hmm
And I think time is like the most valuable currency in the world because like I'm kind of like quoting this one book I read recently, but basically think about like the trajectory of your life. You start out as like a little shithead liability, aka a baby or a kid, but you have all
Okay.
the time in the
Facts.
world to just like do whatever the frick you want because there's nothing expected of you for responsibilities and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But obviously, as you progress through life, you eventually go through primary school and then high school and so forth. And then you think about like, you know, if I want to get to college, I have to do so many different things to like make myself look like a good applicant or candidate so I can get into
Right.
college. So what you do is you give up a lot of your time during your youth to, pursue a lot of the things that you may or may not want to do, whether it's like music, sports, or studying for standardized tests, which I have a lot to comment on. But like that kind of stuff. There's gonna be stuff that you want to do and stuff you don't want to do, and then
Right.
eventually you transition into the next level, which is college. And for some people, that could really range from like, oh, I could do whatever the fuck I want, right? Just
Yeah.
party, smoke, drink, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
or you can also just like use that time, invest a lot of that time to like pursue what you want to do later in life, right?
Right.
And
Would you say
sorry,
no, no, keep I was gonna ask, would you say you've been effective at doing that in your 4 years? Or I mean, I know you like I think it's all about a balance of work and play
yeah,
personally. And I mean, if you do too much work, you're just gonna destroy yourself and I think you're making yourself miserable. Um, I mean, sure, you might set yourself up for success in your career field, maybe financial success. But to me, it's not worth it. But different people have different opinions.
right.
What were you gonna say?
No, and I was just saying like like my motto specifically is work hard, play hard.
Hmm.
Very very simple, but
Hmm.
I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it as well, where sometimes we'll stay on one end of the spectrum for a little too long,
Mm. Yeah.
and it's all about finding that balance for me. Because
Hmm.
let's say let's go on the degenerate, or I want to use all my time just to like do whatever the fuck I want, but like not really work towards something.
Right.
Look at those people later on in life. They're busy all that time they used up early on. They're using it their time in their adulthood to kind of win back that time they need, which is like
Yeah.
maybe they're working some job they don't really want to do, or they're doing something they don't want to do, but they got to make ends meet, right?
Right.
But even at the same time, let's say you are on the other end of the spectrum, high achiever, go getter, really above and beyond.
Hmm.
You spend a lot of time now, but you don't really enjoy everything. Then you get to like a point where, hey, maybe you are doing like a really great, you have a really great profession or career or whatnot.
Right.
But for some people, that could be really bad, in which they just slave away at their career because that's like the only thing. And there's nothing wrong with
Right.
that, because there's just some people who that's like what they want to do and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
know a good majority of people do not want to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives.
Hmm.
And that's just like generic, obviously, because some
Yeah.
different professions, different whatnots.
Yeah.
If we're
Yeah.
gonna try and encompass a general field, then yeah, we'll go with the 9 to 5 assumption.
Hmm.
And I know that a good majority of people do not want to do that until like their 60s, 70s, whatnot, right? So then what we
Right.
do is we try to find that right medium where you're enjoying a lot of the things in the present from this side, but
Hmm.
you're still working towards what you want to do and setting it yourself for success on the other side. And
For sure.
personally for me, it's like I I like to be lazy. As hard as I work for a lot of things, I enjoy being lazy. And
Right.
I really would not want to work till the rest of my life. I would love to just kind of like do a lot of things that I've enjoyed so far, which is just trying different things, exploring different areas, meeting new people. And obviously that's been hard with COVID, but
Yeah. Yeah.
even then
Definitely.
you're still like trying to make the most out of like the little opportunities. And I mean, I'll make another controversial statement here, but I mean, like at least for the Midwest, like the culture is pretty lax on the whole COVID situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're comparing it to like Hawaii or West Coast, and even some places on the East Coast, minus Florida, if you want to count Florida as East Coast or South, whatever, Southeast. But
Yeah.
I think like COVID's kind of like really shed my perspective on a lot of things in life, where I've seen both sides of the spectrum, where carrying that analogy with like work and time to like COVID, you have those people that are just like strictly deathly afraid and like will refuse to do anything and kind of like
Right.
hinder themselves from a lot of things.
Yeah.
But then you also have the other end of the spectrum where you don't give a crap.
Right.
Like, sure, it's good and all if you're like totally fine, which is like a good majority of the people. But then there
Right.
also are that select subset of people that have regretted a lot of the decisions from,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
getting too lit or going out and about too much and, you know, getting
Yeah.
exposed, whether their family member passed away or
Hmm.
they passed away or
Yeah.
either they or someone related to them had, you know, severe debilitating conditions that would just carry on for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Especially once you get intubated in the ice and go into intensive
Hmm.
care unit, then that's already kind of like, I like to say, like one strike on you
Hmm.
internally, because that just makes you more vulnerable.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I feel like the point you're trying to make is that the way I interpreted it is like living in fear. And during COVID, some people lived in great fear of COVID-19. Some people, for whatever reason, they weren't as scared of it. And simultaneously, that can be applied to like your college life. Some people maybe they fear down the line when they're 40 years old, 50 years old, whatever. Maybe I won't. How much money will I be bringing in? Will I be in a profession that I truly enjoy, that also is able to provide for my family or whoever and our financial needs? Whereas some people are kind of just like, some people are more lax. They're more laid back and kind of just go with the flow. And I guess what we think, I mean, my understanding of what you said is like you need a balance. Like, don't get me wrong. Fear is a very human emotion, and it can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It can motivate us to work hard. It can motivate us to do good things. It can motivate us to do bad things, or prevent us from taking chances and stuff like that. And you know, the no one wants to live paycheck to paycheck or potentially be on bad times. So the fear of that situation can motivate us to work hard in school and get the job we want and live the life we want. So in that sense, fear is good. But also, if it's like preventing you from living your life and doing the things you want to do, then of course it's bad. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Hit the nail or hit the hammer right on the nail. But I think at the same time, like I want to like save money and kind of set myself up for success in the future. But there will also be those times where it's like, if I look back on some of the decisions I made with my time and money, I'll probably say, you know, that probably wasn't like the best idea. You know,
Right.
like doing like a 10 leg parlay on NBA bets probably wasn't the best idea when I could have saved that to like buy some groceries or get something else that might have been more useful. But
Right.
well, I make money
That's life
like
though.
from my campus job and my from my hospital job, and
Hmm.
I'll allocate some of it to like paying my non-discretionary or like mandatory costs, where
Hmm.
like I'll dedicate to like my utilities, rent, and whatnot, and then some of that money will also get put to just like savings in the savings.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have a backup.
Oh, for sure.
But
For
then
sure.
whatever I have left, because it's like technically for me it's spring break right now. I
Yeah.
was like, you know, I'll go out and eat or I'll get a few drinks or whatnot, some friends.
Yeah.
Eh,
Yeah. I think that's a good and healthy philosophy.
yeah. And I will admit there's times like at least recently where I've been grinding away studying for
Hmm.
my MCAT, the medical college admission tests are a little bullshit, but that's that's another way a lot of people call it. But I mean, like I've had to sacrifice a lot of time
Right.
of, you know, because that's like the goal I want to be is to go into medicine. And I a lot of my experiences like I think medicine's a great field because I didn't fully answer your question from way back, but I mean, it started off with like those early volunteer experiences, and then I started doing more internships, and
Hmm.
so those internships were kind of involved like a lot of shadowing, getting to work in like the healthcare hospital setting, and then
Right.
some of that expanded to other domains in which you got to do like clinical research opportunities. So like kind of seeing how a lot of the research aspects can be applied to a clinical setting and kind of like really have like a meaningful impact on, future patient therapeutics or treatments.
Hmm.
Um, but then again, also it's just like getting to meet and connect with a lot of the other healthcare workers and like-minded folks. But then also developing a connection with patients has like made me oriented to kind of serve my community and serve those who have like supported me throughout my life. Because eventually
Yeah.
one day I
Yeah.
want to be able to like take care of a lot of the people that have like have taken care of me,
Yeah.
like
Just pay it back.
yeah, pay it back, like grandparents, parents, teachers, mentors, friends,
Hmm.
other family
I feel you.
members, etc.
Yeah.
And
I feel you. I respect
and
that.
then I will say though is like it's like any field, but even obviously in healthcare as well, that you're gonna have those like shitty people you work with, shitty patients that you deal with, and I'm just being
Right.
honest because it's like
No. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
but
facts.
I think like the payoffs outweigh a lot of the costs,
Yeah.
like all the negative costs at least, and I mean I think another great thing about medicine is you're you go through all that rigorous training and stress, ordeal, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you have to do that if you want to get that privilege to, you know, because basically every time you walk into the examination room with a patient, or
Hmm.
whatever, they're basically like vulnerable and opening up to you, and it's like your
Right.
responsibility and your utmost duty to do everything in their interests and really kind of help them in whatever way they need. And
Right.
for some people, it could be just like a simple medical condition that they just need some medications or whatnot. But then for a lot of other people, the issue lies deeper than a biological basis, where
Mm.
you also have to consider like a lot of the psychological and sociological factors that kind of go behind
Hmm.
that may also be um, exacerbating the biological illness in what way.
Right.
I could give an example where for schizophrenia at least, I think I believe it's like a 1% chance in the population that you have a genetic risk to it.
Hmm.
But some people may be more prone or
Hmm.
likely to get schizophrenia in the future due to a lot of environmental stressors or a lot of
Right.
other different things. And that's like kind of like a lot of the issues with a lot of um, the personality disorders and a lot of psychiatric disorders and whatnot.
Hmm.
You may have that genetic susceptibility, but it can often get activated when maybe you're living in a lower socioeconomic condition
Yeah.
or you lack
Yeah.
the tangible or social support or that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then that's also really interesting thing with medicine too is, and it makes it complex as well because let's say you have to cooperate and collaborate with the social worker or a lot of other different professions and stuff, right? Like the business
Right.
aspect too, where like I can give an example from my work. So at least with me, I've been working as like a medical scribe
Hmm.
at a pediatric hospital.
Hmm.
And basically, like what a scribe does is you get to follow the physician you're with around and help them do a lot of like the medical charting and taking
Hmm.
their notes that they need because those notes are important for um, establishing efficient and clear communication between other providers as well. Because
Hmm.
there will be some patients that maybe they only have like one thing going on with them. And then
Right.
you'll have other patients where like, well, they had their normal adult or pediatrician, right? But
Yeah.
maybe they just had like knee surgery a month ago. They
Hmm.
got referred there. But then they also have like depression or they also have like seizures or something. So then they're getting seen by like a neurologist.
Hmm.
Or maybe they're just fucking bleeding out of their ass. So then they're gonna go to like a GI doc, right? So
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's gonna be hard, obviously, if you just have like paper charting and whatnot. And it's like a lot
Right.
of different and nowadays, like compared to the past, they have electronic health record systems that organize a lot of
Hmm.
stuff. But at the same time, for physicians, it can be very draining and exhausting when you're constantly having to like pump out patient notes, charting in some way. You gotta
Yeah.
do this or that because you need to
Hmm.
obviously document that what happened in each patient visit and what your treatment plan is so you can communicate that to the other provider, right?
Yeah.
Because let's say this patient shows up at like the ER
Hmm.
and they've had a history of going to a bunch of other doctors, but heck, you don't have the notes for it, then you're like, what the heck? What are you supposed to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously, like with technology and a lot of different innovations now, that has made it feasible. But at the same time,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's still very tough for a lot of physicians to keep up with that. In addition to a lot of the other things they do, with like surgical procedures or a lot of other things, because
I see.
you have one side where a lot of physicians have dedicated days where they just see patients within a clinic setting.
Hmm.
Then you have to set out times and days for when they do like operations.
Right.
At least for those fields where you do have to do like surgery or like colonoscopy or something like that. You
Yeah.
need to like put the patient under essentially.
Right.
So it's a lot to definitely keep up with and everything. So that's kind of like the long convoluted answer with like the scribe, where the scribe comes in and kind of helping with the physician just take those notes,
Yeah.
help also kind of like organize a lot of things too. Kind of
Like a record keeper.
like a record keeper in a way.
Yeah.
Like if you have LeBron James as the physician, and then you need that like measly low level sidekick like Anthony Davis to kind of help support him. But
Shout out to Roland. I know he'll appreciate that one.
but basically, that's kind of like the analogy I'm trying to make there,
I got you.
because a lot of the people and like a lot of my other friends too have been working as a scribe. Either they have
Yeah.
or are right now, because it's a good job to like give students a lot of exposure to the healthcare setting, but also kind of
Yeah.
like be more interactive and more of a responsibility than say like unpaid shadowing or just like, oh, I follow the doctor for like the day or whatever, and that's a like, really
Right.
meaningful experience. But like if you're actually like working and having to like do a lot of things that kind of like help make their jobs easier, then I think it makes it even more meaningful.
Yeah, it provides more insight
Right.
as to what your career will look like
Yeah.
down the line.
And it's like I haven't been working for that long, but I've already kind of like learned a lot of the different pros and cons, I would say, with
Hmm.
because there would be like a lot of loopholes you have to jump through where, you know, maybe this patient you're just kind of seeing them for like a follow up or return on
Yeah.
their health issue or whatever. So
Hmm.
you kind of maybe like, oh, let me just like copy and paste the old note or whatever because like
Yeah.
nothing's happening. But even then, sometimes they might have like a little thing that changes where it's like, well, maybe they have been having this symptom more frequently, or maybe they're transitioning. Like I saw, for example, from like the pediatric hospital, there was this one patient trying to make sure I don't violate the HIPAA or the patient health history information guidelines, whatever you want
Right.
to call it. But as long as I don't refer them to the name, but I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But basically, it's just like this patient has had like Crohn's disease, so
Hmm.
essentially their diet is pretty restricted and they
Gotcha.
can't eat like gluten and that kind of stuff. We live
I
in a
see. I
world
see.
that's filled with gluten.
Gotcha.
But basically, like this patient, he's fine and everything, but he's reaching that age where he's just entered college and he has to transition to like an adult position.
Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of like those little like nuances that you kind of like forget about sometimes. And like for me, that's kind of like the same thing as well. Where I don't know about you, but like you probably have like an adult doctor, or you.
Right.
But like
Yeah.
me, like I still, I mean, I'm in like my senior year of college, and I still been going to my pediatrician. But it's like kind of
I mean, I don't see it like. Is that embarrassing? I don't think it's
it's
embarrassing.
not
Like,
embarrassing, but it's just like it's the kind of like the little nuances you kind of forget about where like
yeah.
transition and um basically like there's all those different steps and whatnot just to like send the patient from one doctor to another, blah blah blah.
Right. Right.
And it's like obviously that's like not the most like critical thing in the world, but it's like even with those things you still like let's say oh this patient was doing completely fine, but it's like I can't just copy and paste the whole note because like
Yeah.
one I have to like discuss you know he's gonna be transferring the care from him to another physician, and that in itself can be a battle when you've like spent so much time developing that rapport and relationship one patient,
Yeah.
and then having to reestablish that with you know obviously you're gonna trust the physician who's referring you, right? But at the same time, it's like kind of like reestablishing that those steps and stuff again to continue that like effective care, right?
I got you. Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
and that was just like a really, really like detailed example. So you could probably like omit that from the recording or whatever. But I'll just say like,
Hey, this is all one take. This is all one take, and it's all going on. I mean,
but like what I'm trying to say is like when you get to work in the healthcare setting, you get to like learn more and really get to like make meaningful connections with like the physicians and like the patients that you see every once in a while. So yeah,
I got you.
and I mean obviously with like medicine, you're gonna want to go into like I want to go into a profession where I think it can have a meaningful impact on the world. So like
Of course.
still make that bread so you can like
Right.
as stressful and as exhausting as the profession can be, is like there's not
It pays off.
it'll pay off.
Yeah, it pays off financially and morally, and that's why it's worth it to you. That's why you want to pursue it, I assume.
Right. And if like and if I really was just so concerned about money, like I'll just go work at Visa or something.
Hey, shout out to Roland again. Shout out, Roland. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up, Chief. We're going on 50 minutes, but Thanks for speaking. Thanks for your time.
Right.
Appreciate it.
I just want to make one last point.
What's up?
Shout out to Victor Oladipo making his return back for the Miami Heat today. I mean, he's not really that good anymore, but he'll be getting a ring this year with the rest of the boys in Miami. So,
All right. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Shoots.